Have you ever sat in your car in the parking lot of your job, staring blankly at the steering wheel, dreading the moment you have to walk through those glass doors? You know you are underpaid. You know your body aches, your time is being stolen, and your boss has zero respect for your humanity. But you also know that if you walk away, there is literally nowhere else to go. That quiet, suffocating panic. The realization that someone else holds the absolute deed to your survival is exactly how the world's most indestructible corporate monopolies are built. We look at the flashing neon lights, the massive fireworks, and the roaring stadiums of professional wrestling, and we see an empire of gladiators. We think it is a world of pure entertainment, where larger-than-life superheroes sign multi-million-dollar contracts and live out their wildest childhood dreams. We buy the merchandise, we cheer for the underdogs, and we blindly consume the narrative that this is just the free market at work. But that is a brilliantly constructed billion-dollar lie. What you are actually looking at is the most ruthless, legally untouchable labor trap in modern American history. In the spring of 2001, the entire illusion of worker power in this massive global industry evaporated overnight in a single, deeply suspicious transaction. The prevailing story is that Vince McMahon simply won the Monday Night Wars, defeating his billionaire rival Ted Turner in a glorious battle of television ratings. The public thinks this was just a standard corporate victory, a media giant conquering a failing competitor because they simply put on a better television show. They think the war ended organically because the fans chose a winner. Now listen carefully. I am not a financial advisor. I am not a labor attorney. I just read the SEC filings, the historical court documents, and the contract disputes that nobody else wants to dig through. And what those documents reveal is a financial bloodbath that has absolutely nothing to do with television ratings and everything to do with destroying human leverage. Vince McMahon didn't just beat World Championship Wrestling. He bought his soul, billionaire-backed competitor for a jaw-dropping $4.2 million. To put that completely absurd number into perspective, that is less than the cost of a mediocre Manhattan penthouse, and he used it to purchase the absolute monopoly over an entire global industry. When you actually digest what happened in the spring of 2001, you realize it was a masterclass in market manipulation. The athletes who had spent the last 5 years getting rich off a corporate bidding war suddenly woke up to a reality where the war was over, and the victor was taking absolutely zero prisoners. But why am I telling you this? Because this $4.2 million deal wasn't about acquiring tape libraries, television rights, or intellectual property. It was about buying the one single thing that kept his workers free, the threat of an alternative. When that check cleared, he didn't just buy a rival company. He bought the right to dictate exactly how much pain a human being has to endure for a paycheck forever. Imagine a small town where you are a highly skilled carpenter, and there are only 2 massive construction companies that can afford to hire you. If the boss at company A tells you to work 70 hours a week for pennies, you laugh in his face, walk across the street to company B, and demand double the salary. That ability to physically walk across the street is the only reason you have a roof over your head. Now imagine the boss at company A quietly buys company B for pocket change. The next morning, you walk into his office, and he tells you that your pay is being cut in half, you have no health insurance, and if you get hurt on the job, you are entirely on your own. Where are you going to go? You have a mortgage, you have kids, and you possess a highly specialized skill that literally no one else in the world pays for. This is the brutal reality of evolutionary psychology and loss aversion. Human beings are hardwired to accept deeply abusive conditions if the alternative is total starvation and the loss of their identity. Once the illusion of choice is removed, our brains stop fighting for fairness and start fighting purely for basic survival. Before 2001, wrestlers were high-bidding free agents playing 2 billionaires against each other to secure massive, guaranteed downside contracts. They had power, they had leverage, and they could say no. But the moment that $4.2 million deal was signed, the entire psychological ecosystem inverted. The talent transformed overnight from empowered negotiators into desperate, helpless corporate subjects. They were suddenly trapped in a system that exploited their deepest psychological fears. The fear of irrelevance, the fear of losing their spot on television, and the terrifying fear of financial ruin if they pushed back against management. And yet, The Empire masked this horrific reality with one of the greatest public relations shields ever invented. They sold the death of competition to the public as the ultimate fan service. It was marketed to the masses as a massive crossover event, the Invasion, where all the dream matches the fans had debated for a decade were finally going to happen. Think of it like a massive Marvel movie crossover, where all your favorite characters finally share the screen, and you are so excited you don't care how it happened. You are so blinded by the flashing lights and the dopamine hit of nostalgia that you completely ignore the fact that one single studio now owns every theater in town. The Empire successfully convinced the audience to cheer for the exact corporate merger that would permanently strip the performers of their human rights. So who actually built this flawless, inescapable machine? You have to understand the unseen architect of this system, a man who weaponized the very concept of the independent contractor to build an impenetrable defensive moat. The legal genius of this empire relies on a classification that borders on absolute absurdity. These performers are legally categorized as independent contractors, a term usually reserved for a local plumber you hire for an afternoon, or an Uber driver who turns on an app to set their own hours. But let's completely break down that fallacy. These workers cannot work for anyone else. They are told exactly when to show up, exactly what to wear, and exactly what to say into a microphone. They are fined if they step out of line. They cannot secure outside sponsorships, and they are subjected to a grueling, year-round physical schedule with zero off-season. Yet, because of this magical legal loophole, the Empire is completely absolved from providing health insurance, retirement plans, or basic employee safety nets. When a performer shatters their spine in the ring taking a bump for the crowd, they are entirely at the mercy of the company's goodwill, rather than being protected by basic, foundational labor laws. When I break this down, you're going to realize how trapped we all are by these unseen legal boundaries. By purchasing his only rival for $4.2 million, the architect ensured that his workers could never legally challenge this independent contractor status. Why? Because to fight it in federal court, you would need to be willing to be fired. And with the only other major employer dead and buried, being fired meant the end of your entire livelihood. This created a terrifying closed loop where egos could never again clash with management, simply because management held all the cards. If a top star got too demanding or asked for a bigger cut of their merchandise, the architect didn't have to negotiate. He could simply push them down the card, humiliate them on global television, and replace them with someone younger, cheaper, and infinitely more desperate. Just look at the sheer, terrifying scale of what this $4.2 million investment became. Today, we are looking at a multi-billion-dollar publicly traded juggernaut that generates over $1 billion in revenue every single year. That means the original purchase price of their only competitor is now recouped by the company every 36 hours. They didn't just build a defensive moat. They bought the entire ocean, drained it, and charged their own workers for a single drop of water. The architect ensured that the talent, the actual human beings sacrificing their knees, necks, and brains, became nothing more than disposable intellectual property, owned entirely by the machine. When you step back and look at the entirety of this invisible prison, you see a perfectly designed, inescapable closed-loop ecosystem. The company controls the developmental training facilities. They control the global television distribution. They own the legally trademarked rights to the wrestlers' actual names, meaning if a performer leaves, they cannot even legally be the person they just spent a decade building. Trace the path of a consumer interacting with this loop throughout a normal day. You wake up and scroll your phone, watching a viral clip of a massive table spot, a human being literally risking paralysis for your entertainment. The social media platform pays the Empire for those views, and the talent sees virtually none of it. You go to a big box retail store to buy groceries, and you walk down the toy aisle. You see rows of plastic action figures featuring the exact likenesses and tattoos of those performers. The Empire takes the lion's share of that licensing revenue, while the supposed independent contractor gets a fraction of a cent on the dollar. You come home, exhausted from your own job, and you sit down to watch a premium live event on a streaming network that paid over $5 billion for the rights to air this content. And right in the middle of the screen is a performer who doesn't have a 401k, who pays for their own rental cars, and who is terrified to ask for time off because they know there is a line of 100 desperate rookies waiting in the back to take their spot. And this is where the genius of the system fully locks in. The empire doesn't have to force anyone to work. The system is designed so that the workers police themselves out of pure, unadulterated fear of losing access to the only ecosystem that will pay them for their life's work. The hyper-specific pain point we talked about at the very beginning, that suffocating panic of staring at your steering wheel, knowing you have absolutely zero leverage, is the exact foundation this entire billion-dollar ecosystem was built upon. The architect didn't invent gravity, but he figured out exactly how to charge people for the right to fall. You watch these athletes perform on your screen, and you pity them for signing their rights away. You think you are smarter than them. You think if you were in their shoes, you would have held out, you would have demanded a better contract, that you would have fought the corporate machine. But take a very long, hard look at the smartphone in your hand, the banking app you desperately refresh at the grocery checkout, and the corporate logo printed on your own paycheck. We look at these closed-loop monopolies and think we are merely the audience watching a